The downfall of the Reds' playoff hopes in 2025 has a clear culprit, and that is the way this roster was constructed.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been podcasting about the Reds right here on Locked On Reds for 7 seasons now, and I'm glad that you're alongside me. On today's show, we'll talk later on about how the Reds face one of their great nemesis on the mound today, even if he isn't much of a threat to any other team. In a few minutes, we will discuss how Brady Singer's future may go and why it may not necessarily be with the Reds. But we will begin with why the Reds are where they are in this playoff hunt, which is they keep falling. And that's all on today's podcast that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And the Reds lost last night 3-0, shutout. In fact, the Cardinals had 3 runs. The Reds had 3 hits. Not a great night at the ballpark for the Redlegs. Andrew Abbott was fine. Whatever. It wasn't the best night for him, wasn't the worst night. But it was all about the lineup. It was all about the position players. And once again, we've talked about that time and time and time again this season. It's come up so often about the lineup inefficiencies. Specifically having to do with you getting guys on base, you getting them in scoring position, and you can't bring them in. And it's because this team, this roster was built by Nick Krall and Brad Metter. And they bet on Elly De La Cruz. They bet on a resurgent season from Austin Hayes. And they bet on growth from CES. And absolutely all 3 of those things have failed. Now, we can argue exactly how good of a season Austin Hayes has had. And Steve and I will definitely do that coming up here soon. 107 OPS plus. He's been above league average, but just a little bit. Just a little bit. So it's not as if he's setting the world on fire. Nobody took the reins when it came to what does the middle of the lineup have for the Reds. Because they've got a lot of guys that can be on-base guys. They got a lot of guys that can be singles machines. Nobody really stepped up in the power realm. And we heard that all season. Well, this is not a home run hitting team. Nick Krall said it. Terry Francona said it, I think because Nick Krall said it. Brad Metter said it. So many different guys said it. Well, it's not a power team. We don't hit home runs. That's not how we score runs. Okay. Well, then you won't score runs. I mean, they scored some. We talked about how, throughout the season, they were very middle of the pack when it came to that. But when you needed a clutch hit, when you needed a guy to come to the plate and strike fear in the heart of the opposing pitcher, there wasn't one of those guys on this team. Elly De La Cruz has disappeared. And I know he got on base a couple more times last night. He had a walk and a hit. I have a feeling about how the Reds should manage him next year. I think they should move him. Not saying move him off shortstop, although that's an interesting discussion. But they should move him in the lineup. He should not be a middle-of-the-order bopper. He should be the guy getting on base because he's really good at that. And that's fine, and he has power, but not to the tune of a guy that you can really build your lineup around, as he is the run producer. He is the run scorer, not the run producer. And so I think this entire lineup was miscast. Because you look up and down the lineup, who is it that you're relying on in a clutch spot? On a consistent basis. There's been times, nice little sample sizes. We talk about sample sizes a lot on the show of who's going to step up. But they never really built that consistency. The mashed potatoes is not Spencer Steer. I said that Spencer Steer's the mashed potatoes, the consistent part of this lineup, the part that you really can't live without, and that couldn't be more wrong. he's been, not really even that good. OPS plus of 89. It's fine. And he's also apparently dealing with an injury. His rib popped out of place. It was reported by the Inquirer that his rib popped out of place and a chiropractor popped it back in, and he had a back adjustment because it was messing with his back, and that's why he was scratched from the lineup yesterday. I don't know what you do to pop a rib out of place, but my goodness. Spencer Steer's not stepped up and been that guy. We were excited about the return of Matt McLain and what that would mean for this team. At least according to Baseball Reference, he has barely been above replacement level, 0.1 WAR. Now, Fangraphs is a little bit more kind, but that has to do with defensive metrics. They all count hitting the same when it comes to WAR. So he hasn't been the guy to step up, and you have lots of playing time, too much playing time for Santiago Espinal this year. Any roster that had to rely on 112 games from Santiago Espinal had problems. And as much as I wanted to see other players stepping up and helping, other players filling in those roles, that was my hope. That was Nick Krall's plan. And for me, that's a failure. You cannot go into this season knowing that you have this deficiency and just thinking, well, somebody's going to step up. They're going to have to. They're going to have to be able to figure this out because that's how we win. That's not a great way to build a ball club. And going into this offseason, the Reds are going to need to provide answers. We as fans want to have hope. And there's going to be reasons, there's going to be moves that they make to give us hope. But I hope that the moves that they make are to provide answers. Because consider Terry Francona for a minute. And I know there's a lot of people that have been saying, man, I don't know, man, Terry Francona, definitely not as advertised, maybe to the point that I almost wish we still had the other guy. First of all, slow your roll if that's what you're thinking. That's a bad way to be, because I believe that Terry Francona in the long run is going to be a positive. But this season, think about what he had to do. All right, Matt McLain's slumping. Who do we have to go to that is different from him? Well, Gavin Lux hits from the left side. Doesn't have as much power. Isn't as good defensively. But we can play him at second base. Well, Espinal, he can play second base, but he's an even worse hitter. Santiago Espinal is going to finish this season very likely with an OPS plus of less than 35% below league average. That's if he goes on a tear between now and the end of the season. He's barely playing, so I don't think that's going to happen. It's very likely he's going to finish around 40% below league average. And the Reds had to rely a lot on him. And there was some sort of intangible quality apparently that he had that Terry Francona loved because he kept playing him. But it felt like whenever you needed something else, the Reds had a whole bunch of guys that did the same thing. Like, I love TJ Friedl, and he is the on-base master of this roster. But outside of that, he's not really been all that great this season. And what is the difference between, I'm going to name a list of guys, and I would love to know what the difference is between these guys. TJ Friedl, Jake Fraley, Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer. I guess Spencer Steer hits home runs, so probably that's the big difference. All right, TJ Friedl, Jake Fraley, Gavin Lux, and Ke'Bryan Hayes. Ke'Bryan Hayes is better defensively, but at the plate, all of them are guys that you hope get on base. And Jake Fraley is no longer here. But why? Jake Fraley was pretty good at getting on base. Was it because he didn't provide power? There's a lot of guys you could say that about. He had one more home run than Gavin Lux did. There was a lot of guys that it felt like you just couldn't find a different answer with them because this roster was full of very similar guys that all had the same area of baseball that they just weren't that good at. And the Reds need to fix that this offseason. They have to have answers. Nick Krall has to figure this out, because if they go into next season with a very similar roster, they're going to get very similar results. But I know this. Coming up today, Brady Singer is on the mound against the St. Louis Cardinals. He's had a pretty nice season. So why is it that I feel he could be playing somewhere else next season? This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in right then. And with football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action every single week. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. And when you're building those lineups on Prize Picks, they like to help you out. Like this week, they're giving you some help. If you take more on Patrick Mahomes to throw 0.5 passing yards, boom, you get one of your picks right. That's how easy it is. They love to give you those max discounts, as they call them, over on Prize Picks to help make it easier to win some real prizes real quick. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're an everydayer, you rock. And if you're not, you can hit subscribe here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app and become an everydayer. And when you subscribe, you also get Tim Daniel on the Reds postcast going live at the end of every ball game. Still got a few games left here in 2025, and Tim Daniel is going to be with you, just like me and Steve, the rest of the way. And on the mound today in the getaway day game, we got Brady Singer going. Brady Singer has been on a nice run here recently. I mean, really, you look back at his last nine starts, only one of them was less than 6 innings. And that was that start against Pittsburgh that he kind of got shelled, and that was just a rough game all, and General Reds lose 7-0 that game. That was back on August 7th. But every other game has been at least 6 innings. And in the case of back on July 27th, it was 7 1/3 innings. He's been a picture of reliability. Even in his last start against Oakland, 6 innings, a 2-run ball. Fantastic. Sorry, Oakland. Drop another one of them. Against the A's. Picture of reliability. It's just the lineup didn't help him at all, and he got the loss. But overall, when you look at everything that he has done for this team, we said that coming into the year, Brady Singer would be like the glue of the rotation, and that is exactly what he has been. He's not going to push anybody to be the best pitcher in this rotation. Nobody's going to get him confused with Hunter Green or Andrew Abbott or something like that. But he has been every bit as important to this pitching staff as those guys have, because he's been here every single time they've asked him to take the ball. He's been healthy and ready to go. So why on earth is that something that I think the Reds would be all right to lose? Well, we've talked about it a few times, and we'll talk about it quite a few times during the offseason. The Reds have crazy organizational pitching depth. They've got Abbott, Lodolo, Green, your top 3 easy. You've also got Rhett Lauder, who's going to be healthy next year. You've got Chase Burns, who's going to be healthy next year and ready to go. That's your 5 right there. Like, does Brady Singer beat out one of those guys? I don't know. And you could make the argument, okay, well, maybe one of those guys gets hurt, because that's usually what happens in spring training. One of those guys is hurt, and they can't start the season. So do you need Brady Singer for that? Well, you also have Brandon Williamson coming back from Tommy John. All reports are he's looking good. You also have Julian Aguiar, who gave the Reds starts. If you've forgotten who either one of those guys are, they gave the Reds some key starts in 2024 before both got hurt at some point and required Tommy John surgery. And so they missed all of this year. They will be back healthy for 2026. And then you also have Chase Petty, who I believe has worked hard in AAA. We're going to see a nice offseason from him, hopefully see some really good stuff in spring training. We're going to be right back here thinking that he's going to be an interesting option for the Reds next season. And you've got a few other guys that are coming up through the system that are really pushing for a look, like Jose Acuna and guys like that. And I'm sure there'll be a veteran that they might look at adding on like some sort of veteran minimum just to be in the clubhouse. Maybe that's Wade Miley, who knows. But that being said, the Reds are not short on options in the starting rotation. And there's still even a few more young guys that are close to making it to that point where they can really start making a case for themselves and making it to the majors. All of that to be said, they're not the biggest answers in the world, but the Reds could do that thing that they like and save a little bit of money. But they could also package him together with somebody else on the position side of things who is either blocked or just doesn't make sense at a number of different places. Gavin Lux. They could put Brady Singer and Gavin Lux together and maybe get something they need. Get an outfielder. Maybe get an outfielder and a relief pitcher. Maybe, I don't know what that looks like. I'm spitballing a little bit here, but I think that Brady Singer could be a very interesting trade chip for the Reds this offseason. Because everybody needs pitching. And I really think that that could be an interesting turn for him. And I'm not saying that the Reds don't need Brady Singer, but I'm thinking that Brady Singer might be more valuable to them as a trade chip than as somebody on the roster for next year. Think about this. If Brady Singer's on the roster next year, is he really pitching out of the bullpen if he doesn't make the rotation? That's not something he's done. This isn't the same situation as Zach Littell or Nick Martinez. We've been a little bit spoiled with a couple of dudes that are really good at doing whatever the team needs them to do, because their career is profiled as somebody that can do that, because they have that experience. It is a different animal altogether to pitch out of the bullpen. I've talked to multiple different pitchers about this. As a starting pitcher, you have a routine that you can stick to. As a bullpen guy, you don't. And it's a different mental game that guys have to play pitching out of the bullpen. So I don't think that you can just pencil somebody into the Nick Martinez role next year. Brady Singer is not that guy. Brady Singer is in this rotation or he's not here. And I think it's more likely that he gets beaten out by 5 other guys, as much as he's been the glue this year, than it is that he pitches A, out of the bullpen, or B, that he is in the rotation next year. So I think that it would be in the Reds' best interest to make Brady Singer available for a trade they really need. They need a middle-of-the-order guy. They need an outfielder. Ideally, that's the same player that they can acquire, but Nick Krall has to be creative this offseason. And Brady Singer can allow him to do that if he understands his value. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he has for the Reds the rest of the way. I mean, he is a picture of reliability for the Reds. He was for the Royals before they traded him, at least as far as how many starts he made. 2 straight years of making 29 or more starts, and he's already made 29 starts this year for the Reds. That's the thing that is really going to be impressive here, is that as long as, knock on wood, fingers crossed, nothing crazy happens and he gets scratched from today's start, but this will be his 30th start of the season. You got to go back to when Luis Castillo and Tyler Mahle were still towing the rubber for the Redlegs for the last time that the Reds had somebody make at least 30 starts in a season. So, I mean, it's not been like a crazy long time, but still, that's a pretty decent long time to go without having one guy make 30 starts. And I think that cannot go unspoken, but I still think that the value here for Brady Singer might be Nick Krall to use him as a player that he can acquire a position of need, because the Reds need to have answers at the positions they have questions. They don't need to try out other guys. And I know I'm getting back into what we talked about to begin the show, but stop trying to put guys out of position. They got to stop doing that. Got to stop doing that. But you know, the Reds, they're looking to get away from this road trip, but they must face one of their great nemesis before they leave St. Louis. Look, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. In fact, this was something that I've always had problems with, but Monarch Money is here to simplify things because it's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB. And we've only got a few more opportunities to see our Red Legs. As much as I really want them to go on a run, it kind of feels like the regular season's going to end, and that'll be the last of Reds baseball for 2025. So you need to get on down to the ballpark right now, and Game Time is the best way to do it. Game Time's the only way that I do it. I do it when I go down to the Reds games. If I'm following the Reds on the road, I did this whenever we went to San Francisco, using Game Time to get my tickets because Game Time makes it easy. Whether it's the all-in pricing that it shows you for every ticket that you're looking at, or it's the view from your seat. Whether you're going to Great American Ballpark or if you are out in San Francisco going to Oracle Park, they're going to show you what your view looks like. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets so that you can feel confident in your purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off the Game Time app. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on every single one of them. Also, make sure you check out Locked On MLB Game Night over on the Locked On MLB feed. They keep you up to date every single day through the playoff race, all the way through the World Series until we crown a champion. That's Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube feed and on their audio feed as well. All right, the Reds got Andre Pallante today, and as much as I thought they've faced Andre Pallante like 25 times this year, they've only faced him 3 times, but that's still kind of interesting. You face a guy 4 times in a year because Andre Pallante has this weird hold over the Reds lineup. In his career, he has pitched 18 total games, 8 as a starter, but that's 10 relief appearances, but that's 56 1/3 innings against the Reds. He has a 2.08 ERA, and he has 6 wins. He's beaten the Reds 6 times, or at least he's been the pitcher of record in those games. He has no more than 2 wins against any other team in Major League Baseball. We're talking about a guy, and we just got done talking about Brady Singer and the fact that he's had a really nice year. Brady Singer this year has a WAR of 3.2. I thought I had it memorized and I wasn't trusting myself. I should have just went with it. 3.2 wins above replacement for Brady Singer. Andre Pallante, on his career in 4 seasons, has 2.7 WAR total, according to Baseball Reference. So he's not been that great of a guy, but against the Reds, he's Cy Young for some reason. And it's weird because when you look at every other stat, and we always tell you when you're evaluating a pitcher, there's a lot more than just ERA to pay attention to. When you look at those other statistics against the Reds, he's actually pretty pedestrian. He allows almost a base runner and a half per inning, which isn't great. He doesn't strike out that many guys. He's walked 30 Reds in 56 1/3 innings. It's just he does two things really well. He limits the homers. He's allowed 2 in 56 and a third innings. And he has 7 double plays that he has forced. So when he allows base runners, he somehow gets out of it. And it's because he allows a lot of ground. He keeps the ball on the ground a lot. And it just seems to find the gloves. Thankfully, the Reds have broken through. I mentioned those 2 home runs. They've broken through this year in the 3 starts that he has made against them because both of those home runs are from this year. In fact, his most recent start on August 31st against the Reds, they homered against him. Now, they only scored 2 runs in the quintessential Andre Pallante versus Cincinnati Reds game in the way that it would go. He allowed 9 base runners, 5 hits and 4 walks, and the Reds scored just 2 times. They can't do that again. This is not a guy. This is a guy that makes you tear your hair out when it comes to this Reds lineup because he's the quintessential dude. This year, right now, he's got a 5.3 ERA. He's right-handed. He's not even a lefty. Like, we can't even make the whole joke about, like, if you just throw objects with your left hand, you could probably beat this Reds lineup. He's a righty. And he just has this hold over the Reds. I mentioned they did hit, they have broken through and hitting long balls against him this year, 2 long balls. They still haven't managed to score more than 3 times against him in any given start. I don't understand what it is outside of just ground balls and getting lucky. And the Reds just beating themselves and having horrible at-bats when they have opportunities to score. Get you somebody who loves you as much as the Reds love missing opportunities with runners in scoring position. I mean, they don't love it, but as much as they miss, they probably love it. It's so frustrating to watch this team hit right now. And that's why, a 3-0 loss, and I'm not even frustrated about the fact that this is hurting their playoff resume. We talked about it a couple of days ago. We kind of pronounced the playoff hopes dead. But you're still looking to glean something from this season. What can you do with it? Can you be above 500, which I know for a lot of people would just be annoying at this point because what is above 500 if you don't make the playoffs? But go out strong. And you've already lost the season series to the Cardinals here. You had to sweep them to win it. You're not going to do that. But even if they win today, they'd be 4-5 on the road trip. The final trip out to the West Coast. A 9-gamer. You go 4-5. That's not bad. Of course, if you lose, you're 3-6. And that's pretty bad. It's crazy what one game can do for you in Major League Baseball, and that's exactly what the Reds are looking at. And it's Andre Pallante who's going to be on the mound facing them here today. Hopefully, they can figure out a way to break through. Because like I said, this dude, his career is not very impressive. But for some reason, he has the Reds number. That'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Reds podcast. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen every day. Thanks for making us part of your everyday routine. If you're not an everydayer and you got to this point, hit subscribe. You need to become an everydayer. And when you do, you'll get Tim Daniel on the Reds postcast. He's live at the end of every ballgame. He'll be live at the end of this one here, the finale in St. Louis, last game of the season against the Cardinals. So make sure you check him out. And Steve will be back tomorrow. He's traveling today. So it's just me solo, but he'll be back tomorrow. And we will be all over this Reds team because we are Locked On Reds every single day.